Yeah, look at that. Yes, it is Thursday. It is 9. So it's UK Cowboys time. And it's just the very beautiful and very perfect Mr. Lawn joining tonight. Sorry, as I just start, somebody decides to text me. Just as you do, everybody
As long as
knows
it's
this is
not
the
you getting
time.
called away for work, Mike, that's all right.
I don't. We're safe at the moment. Don't worry about that. We're safe this week. But how you doing, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah.
Good weekend. Obviously, the Edinburgh Wolves beat the Pirates, so I got my bragging rights on Paul.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm just interested to see what's been going on with the schedule release so far. So
Yeah, there's all that going on now. Obviously, the time of this show going out, in case you're watching on the or listening on the podcast or watching after we've gone live, obviously the schedule we're getting snippets. We know some things which we'll talk about now, but mostly we'll talk about the schedule on next week's show as well as what's going on rookie mini camps and all the rest of it. We're going to talk mostly about the day 3 guys that were taken in the draft. Really, all of them bar one. Thank you very much, Joe. Good to see you. And the Labarski's in. Now, we did have a guest lined up as well, but with everything that is going on, he's been rescheduled. So it is a he. So we will get that lined up, but we have another one next week. So that's going to be a lot of fun. One moment. That's better. Needed to just line the throat line in there. But yes, so we'll talk first of all on the first thing that came out was the international schedule release that was yesterday. That came out. No Cowboys coming to London as an away team or road team. Double Jaguars though. What does that make you think?
from everything I've heard, it's all checking on, it's another factor in checking on whether it's feasible to have a team operating out of London.
Mm-hmm.
Just see how they go their week to week daily training, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the Jags have a base here anyway, but just to see how it goes, you know, them recovering from a game, you know, with the facilities they've got here won't be necessarily as high end as what they have in Jacksonville itself, to see how that all works out and see if there's any problems with that side of things.
Like the logistics of it all is what you're
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah,
In my personal opinion, I've said this before and I've discussed this, and actually we discussed it once with Neil Reynolds. For those outside of this, out of the UK, Neil Reynolds is like the main man when it comes to NFL reporting in the UK. But I've said this that I feel when you look at it, it's nice. It's a nice dream to have. I just don't see it, me personally. I just don't think there will ever be a UK team. Not because of what happened with the failures of NFL Europe, because that's a whole different kettle of fish
yeah,
altogether. That's something beyond what really this is. I just don't see it because I think it's a nice dream to keep having. I feel it's just not something they would ever sign off on. If it would, I think it wouldn't be the Jags moving here. It would be like because you've got this whole international marketing agreement with this section. I
yeah,
think what would end up happening is they would be like almost kind of like a semi-expansion team, and I think they would tinker around with that first.
yeah.
Um, and just see where it lies because you've got to have Germany in there. You've got to have Mexico. You probably would you? They've got their own league. I was thinking Canada, but it's possible. But that would be the sort of thing I think they would go down the road of first. I don't know what you feel on it. What's your thoughts? I know you've got your own thoughts on
Yeah, I
the whole
mean, uh,
international.
there's a couple of things I think. Obviously, by trying to get a team based here, they're obviously hoping that fans will suddenly embrace it and become the London Jaguars fans, or whatever team
Mm,
comes across, or if it's a brand new expansion team. Obviously, Roger Goodall's obviously mentioned that he'd love to have a division across here, but how that then gives you a lopsided league. At the moment, 32 teams. It's four divisions in each conference, nice and easy.
It's nice and split, yeah.
The other thing as well, I think you're not going to get fans who certainly have been fans since the 80s, who have been fans of the the Washington team, the
Yes.
Chicago Bears, the Philadelphia Eagles, Raiders, Cowboys, whatever. You're not
Mm-hmm.
suddenly going to get them to jump ship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to ask people to pay for what they're paying at the moment for a season ticket, which is 3 or 4 games, and it's niche, and you're getting to see all sorts of teams coming across. To ask them to then go and pay the equivalent of that, extrapolated out to 8 games or 9 games, that's where it's going to fall foul, I think. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I've been to a couple of the games now. I've been to, going back to 1997, I was at the American Bowl in Dublin. And more recently, I was at the Panthers Buccaneers game a couple of years ago in Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, half the people that were sat around me were people who, on both occasions, were people who actually came across with one of the teams that were playing that day,
Yeah.
and were using it as an ability to sort of track down the routes and all this sort of stuff, which obviously Americans are very interested in learning their ties to
Yeah, they
the
love their
UK and
history.
all that sort of thing. Fair
Mm-hmm.
enough.
Yeah.
But you do then tend to wonder how many actual UK based, whether suddenly if you weren't getting all these teams coming across or all these fans coming across from the States all the time, whether you would be selling out Tottenham or Wembley or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's, you can see the market's good in Germany, and I always
Yeah.
say that Germany has always been good because obviously with the way things were after World War II, there was American air bases there all the time, so the American culture's integrated a lot easier into Germany, and they embraced it that way. And that's why they were getting 30,000-40,000 when NFL Europe was going on. And they've got they've started up semi-pro leagues in Germany as well, where very much it's still amateur across here. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. But yes, it's good to see all the usual names popping up. It's good to see you guys, Austin Powers, DJ Dog, Barsky Joe, all in the house. It's good to see you guys. So yeah, we've had some. Oh, and Andy's in the house. Like, here we go. We've got another one in here, another fellow Yuki. We've had those rumblings on some things being mentioned in the comments here as well. First of all, we'll start with the tippy top of because it's very appropriate for what we're doing. Thanksgiving is looking like it's the Washington Commanders game. So we've got UK Cowboys, everyone ascending to AT&T for Thanksgiving, which is good, and it's a rivalry game. Give us your takes, guys. What you think? I know it's not completely official, but it's sounding like it is. By the time this goes out, we'll know for sure. What do you think then, Law? Do you like that?
yeah, certainly if you go back, obviously Thanksgiving in Washington and Dallas is certainly, it's quite a star-studded history.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Clint Longley, and there were numerous games during the 90s as well, where
Mm-hmm.
we were playing them on Thanksgiving. Um, literally, if you weren't going to have somebody within the division, then you were talking it was going to be the Rams, the Seahawks, or the Patriots.
Yeah.
Um, I'd sort of gone on our group chat yesterday. I thought the Seahawks would have been a prime example, but you said it was staying in the division. You were right.
Yeah.
Albeit we kind of guessed the Giants, but then Giants are penciled in for week 1 apparently. So, and we're actually getting the 49ers, we're away at 49ers in week 5 and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
we're getting some of our road trips done early on.
Yeah.
So that's good in some respects. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And
it's certainly. I mean, it's lost some of its luster in recent years, obviously, with the way the Commanders have sort of tailed off and misperformed on the field. But again, I don't dislike their draft this year. Hopefully, they get rid of Snyder by the time it comes round, and at least the foothold is there that the Commanders can build on everything, and you get back to a good rivalry again. So.
yeah.
And it'll be
Just
good because we'll be there and we'll have the flags in the stadium, and
there you go.
it's going to be a loss for the Commanders.
Just so you know, DJ Dog, yes, we will all be making that trip. So we will talk about that at the end about the Thanksgiving trip as well. But here's an interesting one. Here's something I quite like. Week 5, we are at Levi Stadium. It's the revenge game.
Yeah.
I actually think having week 5, so you're not completely into winter because what it gets like over in the Bay Area as it gets toward winter, very foggy, misty, damp. I think having it early in the season, that's a big plus. That's the first thing that I saw. So that's good news. The only thing that I kind of go about is that it's the Cowboys and Giants week 1 again. It's just like, really, do we have to do this? I get it. Okay, division rivalries and all of that, but you kind of just like, I'm bored of seeing the same 2 Jersey Cousins week 1. Give me something different. That's right, dog. Yes, will be a lot of fun. So that there is that. The only other real leaks that have come out is it could be Washington for the final game. I quite like that idea. And Arizona's week 3 is the other leak that has come out. So all interesting, quite good. Arizona, you kind of like don't mind if it's now or later, really. I think the good thing about Arizona, because they've got so many changes with that roster, with what's going on, I think having them early is a good thing because they're still trying to find their feet. So that's not a bad thing. But any other takeaways you've got on the leaked parts of the schedule so far?
Well, I've also just seen that apparently the Giants' full schedule's been leaked, and we've got the Giants coming to Texas Stadium or AT&T week 10. So that looks interesting. Obviously, Thanksgiving isn't the Jets as we thought because they're playing the Black Friday game the day after. So you would have thought that would have been a marquee matchup, but they're obviously saving that for another point in the year. The 49ers game is interesting, but then the 49ers have got question marks. Obviously, who's going to be starting at QB for them? Because Brock Purdy's not going to be cleared to start throwing until July. Trey Lance, you don't know whether he's on the roster bubble or not.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, and then you got Sam Darnold. You've got signed somebody else recently as well. That's an interesting piece for the quarterback room as well for training camp as well. So.
So I mean, it's very. I mean, we've also got an NFC East division rival on Christmas Day as well. That has been leaked. There's some rumors as well about there being 3 Christmas games. I don't know how much truth is in that. That will be interesting to see. Mostly it's because they're saying because Christmas is on a Monday, you got your 2 Christmas games plus the Monday night football game. Is what they're saying. So they're tinkering around with something that has happened before in the past. Could have just be speculation and rumor, but that's all it really is. While we're doing this,
at the moment, anybody could. I could create a burner account, say something, and it'll get about 50 retweets or whatever, and
Yeah.
then everybody's going, yeah, that's going to happen. So
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously next week we will discuss more on the full schedule. So that's next week's show, as well as any additions that have been made, because there has been one already, but additions that have been made to the Cowboys roster heading into the mini camps and OTAs and all the rest of it. So we will discuss that next week. We'll have it all broken down, what our thoughts are, and go through the roster. And start doing some predictions, and then we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of the position breakdown series, which is always a fun time. But let's start off then. Oh, I say start off. We're just starting off the next section of looking at our day 3 guys. So obviously we looked last week, day 1, day 2. So we'll look at the day 3 guys, and we can finally, so this will officially be the last draft show that we do for this year. So we'll talk obviously about the first guy. Now I know a lot of people are a fan. There was some questions, and I get it. I get the reasoning why. I still never found out. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Is he related to Simi?
he's not related to Simi, but he does have an extensive family network who have played NFL. Most notably is Vita Vea. Vita Vea is a cousin and grew up along the street.
That's right. Yes.
So they've certainly, I'm sure Vita Vea has actually schooled him some with some of the moves that he's actually picked up. So that's certainly probably to our bonus.
Yes. I mean, I've looked at him. So we're obviously talking about the defensive tackle, which way you want to look at, from San Jose State, Villami, or Junior Fahoko, as some people call him. I can remember him having quite a semi-decent shot game, and I've got it on my notes. So he is fairly good. His issue, because like a lot of people, when you talk about day 3 picks, there's something obviously abundantly wrong or that they need development in. And for me, it's just basic tackling.
Yeah.
He falls off tackles a little too easy. But before I start rambling on and giving you my my ins and outs, what's your thoughts and feelings on Fahoko then? What have you seen?
Again, I like the pick. He's he's very good at the hand fighting that's needed for in the trenches.
Yeah.
Which obviously gets him into space to try and make the tackles. He's a 3-time at first All MWC, a second team All American. He was the MWC Defensive Player of the Year. You don't just give that away to anybody. So, and he's got the production. I mean, again, sort of 23 sacks over 4 years playing. There's that's good. He's and he's also got the length that he can actually bat balls down as well. So I like that. By all accounts, the talk is that it's another one in the sort of Kendrick Golston mode that you're gonna ask him to bulk up and become a bit of a tweener between playing defensive end and 3 techniques. So
yeah, because he is quite light. He's only like, when you think of the type of position he's going to be playing, that sort of whether you want him, and you're quite right in what you're saying, whether they want to move him more inside into a 3 tack, does he stay on the outside? Either way, I feel he still needs to bulk up. I mean, he's 200 and just about 260 pounds. The height is fine. I'm fine with the height, but it's more like you need to have a full sort of like athletic plan on what you want to do with the positioning of him. But the talent is there. Like the basic talent is there. He, for me, was a 5th round. I've given him a 5th round grade, and you had this board, so I'm not lying there. So it's not that far off. I don't mind the fact that they've gone to pick him early. It's the same idea as the Shoemaker, as the yeah. So obviously that pick, you could say, yeah, he's more of a third round grade, and you're like, yeah, they've gone early because they feel that by the time they wheel back around for their next pick, he wasn't going to be there. And I'm completely fine that if that's your guy and you feel that he's going to be that player that you're looking for, take him around early. Then, you don't want to lose what you feel invested in, because you're quite right. Hands are good. I've got that. He's good on a 4-3 defense as a pass rusher on the edge, or you could add some muscle to him and squeeze him in as a 3-4 outside linebacker, which completely fits what Dan Quinn kind of does. Got size, strength, versatility, very quick and flexible. And you do see consistency, especially in his dip and bend around the edge. And I think that's something that is very important when it comes to what they're going to decide to do with him, because he is physical. But I think what's best about him is that the way he can dip and he can bend on the edge. And that's one of the reasons why I think the way that they're looking at this is, and we discussed this before with the defensive end position, where a lot of people will argue we don't need defensive end. And my argument was, well, we definitely do, because what is your plan beyond this year? Because after this season, your plan is DeMarcus Lawrence, who's going to be 33 years of age.
Yep.
That's your plan. And then the other guy then is, obviously, we've got Sam on the other side, which is obviously he's still learning. But you need to get somebody now, which they've done. You need to get them learning, get them up to speed, get them, built for the position. And that's all these things. When you look at this pick, I feel he's going to be one of those defensive ends that they're trying to groom to be the next whatever it is they're going to do. Because maybe Dorrance Armstrong stays. I think, perhaps he's done enough, but there's no guarantee. So you've got to do something. And I think that's why this pick was done earlier as well. Not just being a guy, that there's a kind of like a priority that this needs to get done. And then you look at all of his traits, you're like, yeah, defensive end. But go on, Ron.
Yeah. Well, as you say, I mean, Dorrance Armstrong's in a contract year this year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Dante Fowler that re-signed for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
You've got those guys. Sam Williams certainly has flashed, but there was the incident that he had in his car last year that, is that maybe a sign of character now? Okay, you obviously you've seen this week that a certain defensive tackle that dropped in the first round, he's now gone on social media wearing clothes that he probably shouldn't have been wearing, and now is potentially looking at a suspension.
He's getting suspended. I'm telling you.
Yep. Because I mean that's just not tolerated at all, especially when you pick one of the worst gangs in LA culture as well to show the colors of as well. I mean, that's just
doing like all the hand signs to go with it as well, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, it was one thing, and we said, I think a couple of weeks back where we were talking about this as well, that, the fact that he's got all of the Georgia team around him, is that really going to be a good thing for him? That, he's got the same guys he's been hanging with for the last 3 or 4 years. DJ Dog, just in case you haven't heard, it's Jalen Carter is he's been on social media. I think it's the Bloods that he's been wearing the gear of. So obviously one of the LA gangs.
Not a smart move, but he had issues of maturity before,
Yeah.
There was questions on that. But I mean, sticking with Junior Fehoko, my other issues with him is just more of top end speed. So to click and close in pursuit, shedding can sometimes be of an issue. He has length, has good hands, but sometimes fails to use them. And then the last one is being able to play with a stable anchor. He does struggle with that. But all of that, when you say that and you look at everything about him, to me, when I look at that, I just go, they are going to groom him to be a defensive end.
Yeah, he's also the one thing he needs to work on as well is he tends to jump the ball as well. He's been heavily penalised over the last couple of years for jumping off sides. Or even in full encroachment, not just jumping offside, but full encroachment, making contact and sort of unabated to the quarterback sort of thing. So that's something you just got to get him to anticipate the snap, but hone that down so that he can actually just jump at the right time and not be the equivalent of Michael Bennett, when we had him a couple of years ago and he was already lined up in the neutral zone half the time. So.
Yeah. Well, we had wide receivers that did that last year, so there we go.
Yeah,
I've never seen that before, but anyway, yes. So I think for me, for Hoko, he's going to make the 53. He's going to. I think he's got some ability, perhaps. I think there's some ability there to as well contribute on special teams. So that's going to be important for him, especially when you're down this end of the roster. You need to be able to.
Yeah.
If you can't, then you're just not making the cut, which is some of the reasons why I've got issues with people with high expectations of certain, not all, but certain players on that the Cowboys took in the UDFA market. But yeah, I think he's going to make the cut. I think he makes the 53. Yep. Rotational piece, I think this year, working towards more snaps in the future.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you look at the recent history, since Mike McCarthy's been on, we've kept just about every single draft pick for at least a year, give or take. I think John Ridgway's the only one that we, obviously put on the practice squad, and unfortunately he then got pinched by our Thanksgiving opponents. So, and obviously, with hindsight, maybe we should have moved on from somebody a little bit sooner.
True.
Tristan Hill was still on the roster. Neville Gallimore's been a healthy scratch towards the end of last season as well. So again, this is if they're talking about bulking them up to go for 3 technique, that's maybe, again, that's maybe somebody that needs to worry about his position as Gallimore. So
it's gonna be. I don't see it myself. He's gonna be an edge. He's definitely working to edge. That's the way I look at it. And they certainly will need that help going into the future. But there we go. All right, so let's look at Awesome Richards. So offensive tackle from North Carolina. My comp for him, and I have a 7th round grade on him as well. So okay. But my comp for him was Brandon Knight. And as soon as I say that, a lot of people are going to get scared. Now, my reason behind that is exactly what Brandon Knight did. An adequate pass blocker, but not a very good run blocker. And that is the best way to describe Awesome Richard. Now, the foundation for what he has and what he's coming into the NFL, because run blocking more than anything is about power. It's about power, being able to get in there, shove, be a bully. And that's just because he's this finesse blocker. He's trying to he's trying to work his way around things that when you run blocking, that does not work. And he does the same in both aspects. He will try to pass block and run block exactly the same way. And it's not the different techniques, different mindsets altogether. And that is going to be his problem. But I think with enough coaching, getting into the gym, strength and conditioning, all of that, plus you think about the type of guys he's going to be with, Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele. When you think about Terrence Steele, how good of a run blocker Terrence Steele is, man, you can learn off that very easily. And I just think that this is the time now for him to learn. Between now and pre-season, it's a good thing to do, and he's got everything he needs. He's I think he's got the demeanor, like the mind, not the demeanor, but like in his mind, you can see he knows he needs to be nasty and run blocking.
Yeah.
But I think it's just when it gets down to run blocking, he just thinks that you can finesse it. And you can't completely. You need to be the bully.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, that we talked about certainly day one and day two was schemed towards both the run game, both stopping the run and actually
Establishing.
establishing it as well.
Yeah.
And admittedly, as the draft went on, obviously a lot of probably the choice targets for the Cowboys were certainly going off the board, and there must have been a hell of a lot of deliberation with talking about the previous pick with Fahoku, that should we have taken an offensive lineman there, because I think Maffey was still on the board, and guys like that. And it's interesting that Asim Richards was primarily, his strength is pass blocking. But the one thing I noticed on the majority of the game tape that I watched of him was he was coming out of a 2-point stance even in the running game as well.
Yeah.
Which, that kind of puts you at a disadvantage as well. It's a hell of a lot easier to run block when you're down on a 3-point stance and you're coming up, as long as you don't end up tripping as you come up or anything like that. Then,
it truly is. But in run blocking, it truly is what you're getting is the lowest man wins.
Yep. And it just gives you more power as well. I mean, whenever we used to run a couple of plays that were run out of a 2-point stance, and I never seemed to feel that I got the same sort of strength coming off the ball that I did from a 3-point stance. And I actually preferred it if I was in a 2-point stance that we were moving in motion. And he does have good motion skills. He can come along the line and crack down. Can get to a second level and make the block as well where required. But again, if you're asking him to go head up against somebody from a 2-point stance, that's something that's not going to work. Now, again, one of the things is his position flex. He's certainly played 3 or 4 games left guard, left tackle.
Yeah, there you go.
Again, he said that I think in high school he played center as well. So you've got basically 3 of the 5 positions covered. Without actually having to necessarily change the stance or anything like that. I think obviously the person I'd be most worried about, and obviously you hear all the talk at the moment, the person I'd be most worried about if it was me and it was talking job security, is obviously somebody like Josh Ball. From the sounds of things, this guy's already ahead of where Josh Ball is.
Okay.
But again, Josh Ball's now had 2 years of strength and conditioning. But again, the coaches don't seem to be able to decide where they're going to be playing him. And if this guy's a better pass blocker, then obviously, if something happens to Terrence Steele or whatever, then this is somebody that we would maybe enter into the consideration for right tackle or something.
Yeah. I mean, because he's a smart player. You can see he understands. He knows when defenses are, where he reacts well, and you can see he reacts intelligently to stunts and twists. Knows, understands his movement that he needs to do when you have a pulling guard. He's very, very good, and also coming off the snap, that burst is really good too. I like both of those things, and I think that you can talk about that he's got the physical gifts. He sometimes forgets how to use them part, um, especially in run blocking. I just think a lot of that can be coached in, and especially when you think about what the Cowboys now have on the offensive line in terms of coaching. Definitely the right people in the right place to get the best out of him and to develop him sooner. In terms of, like you say, about him being above Josh Ball, I mean, even when the pick was made, I wasn't a big fan of the Josh Ball pick, but um, I think the best place to start will be when we get to camp and we get to see where these guys are at. And once you know
Yeah,
that level, we'll know exactly what's going to happen. But I agree that it's going to be Josh Ball, because although he's a tackle, it's going to be Josh Ball that's the one that's going to be the most scared about his job security. I agree there. Makes the 53, though, I think, without a doubt. When you think back as well last year, I think they're going to go heavy offensive linemen. When we just started losing offensive line when they were dropping like flies.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And then you think as well what you've got in terms of Terrence Steele. Where is he with his, with his recoveries, recuperation? We've got Tyron Smith, and everybody knows the situation there. So I think they're going to go quite heavy on that front. So definitely makes a 53. I don't know what you think
yeah.
as well.
No, I think he does. If need be, maybe you try and stash him on the practice squad if it's
Mm,
not working out. But
mm.
um,
Yeah, never say never, as they say. Yeah, you're quite right.
yeah, I think the Cowboys always have a plan for how to get these guys either on the practice squad, or if there'll be an injury comes up or something like that,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
can
yeah.
they
The
can
old,
bring him back halfway through the season or whatever. So
that's it. That
um,
season-long IR concussion.
yeah,
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's talk about the next guy then, Eric Scott. Eric Scott Jr., I should say, from Southern Mississippi, cornerback.
yep,
Um, I did have him. Oh God, I did have him on my, but I kind of removed it before the draft. Basically, he was sat right on the level of where I kind of do the cutoff. But I kind of did watch a little on him. Quite interesting. But here's what interests me the most. It's the athletic profile, right? I'll give this to you now, right? Because it was the first thing that popped off straight away to me. Just shy 6'3", right? Top
yep,
92 percentile. Hands 32 and 3/8 for a cornerback. That's huge.
yeah,
That's massive. Wingspan 80 and 1/8. Big wingspan.
yeah,
Then you add a vertical of 39.5 and a broad jump of 133. I mean, this guy is you just want to say lengthy. He is lengthy
yeah.
with
I mean,
loads of reach.
and this goes along the same lines as Nashawn Wright. Obviously, Nashawn Wright was a third round pick, but
Good example. Yeah.
it's the Dan Quinn style of corner. It's a six
Hmm.
foot three guy. It's made the quarterback have to be precise with your throws.
Yeah.
The bigger the guy, the bigger the wingspan, the more accurate you've got to be and fit it through tight windows.
Yeah.
Um, Now, conversely, when they're that tall, it's interesting because smaller receivers can perhaps leave them
Get
uh,
underneath.
break the ankles, as you say, with double moves and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly with those hands, he's no stranger to catching the ball, and again in his interviews on the draft show, the talk was that he was taught that if the ball is in the air, it's his ball as much as anything. So again, that's a Dan Quinn ism that it's
Yeah.
see ball, go ball,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than don't give up the yardage or whatever. It's they're allowing you to gamble for that. And he certainly, if I remember rightly, he's had two or three pick sixes.
Mm.
Um, good interception, good ratio in a way as well. So again, it's perhaps lower competition, but be interesting to see how it goes when we get to training camp.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, getting distracted. But all about talk about hot tubs at the moment. But yeah. I think in terms of, you said, about the Nation Right thing, lengthy, tall, jump, all the rest of it, but issues: strength, power, speed, physicality. Exactly like Nation Right. You could say there is issues too. I think what they're trying to do is they definitely want, like that type of red zone cover corner that they're looking for, which is what
Yeah,
Nation Right was supposed to be. I think that's what they're trying to find. They're trying to get. The issue, I think, is that with cornerbacks is that they're just really hard, especially at this stage, to try and find. Like,
yeah,
if you weren't going to take one early, like we all was expecting, okay, I'm not saying that would have been better than the Mazzy Smith pick, but we all know your Joey Porters or whatever, that once you went down the line and you got to here with cornerback, you're going to have to find guys with traits, and you're trying to do the rest somewhere else. In his term, get his speed, because his speed isn't great. He doesn't even
yeah,
have good recovery speed. And because he lacks that physicality, he's got this real good length, real good jump. But then when the ball's getting to him, you're like, come on, you've done the hard part. All you got to do is just get up and be physical. And it was the same complaint I had about a cornerback we took in the second round a few years ago, who's now left. And you just think that, like, this is very eerily similar, where he's doing the hard part. He's in the hip pocket. He can get up
yeah.
thing. It's just get your head round, be physical, and that is something that's missing from him. But I think between him and Nation, because of obviously beyond what you have between your first three cornerbacks, because you've got Stephen Gilmore, what happens at cornerback 4, 5, and 6 that also need to be special teamers, which luckily Kelvin can do. It's now behind the other two, especially for Nation Right, on what happens here at cornerback. So it's going to be quite an interesting little camp battle that's going to happen there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Nation Wright obviously is produced on special teams as well. He
Yeah,
had the block.
of
He
course.
had the block punt return for a touchdown. He unfortunately also had the
Go the other way.
the illegal touching or whatever it was as
Yeah.
well, and that
Bounced off his
really
helmet.
strange game as well. But
Yeah.
he's obviously no slouch on special teams, and the coaches have faith in him as well. And you actually saw something from Nashon Wright as well last year, and
Mm-hmm.
then inexplicably they then went and decided that they needed somebody else brought in, and brought in a couple of guys off the street like Xavier Rhodes and what have you.
Yeah.
But maybe that's given him enough to know that he can play in the league. He got his interception, but likewise, Eric Scott. Maybe this is this year's sort of Deron Bland. Maybe it'll be a nice surprise for him as well.
It very well could be too. He's got like that standby potential, isn't he? As that type of, that could just surprise people as that this year's
Yep.
Deron Bland.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at the last guy, because we won't look at the wide receiver till we get some more facts on him and some figures, which we will see. Because honestly, it was a bit of an enigma, and I shared a video because I'm still trying to get as much as I can on him. So we'll look at our Kansas State running back Deuce Vaughn, which was really the feel good story of everything.
Yep.
Being a father, we know the images we saw, what that must feel like. You're just like, oh yeah. Deuce Vaughn to me has this sort of brand of football football, if you want to comp him, I try and think, and I'm like, he's like a smaller, lighter Giovanni Bernard is the best comp I can try and think of him.
Well, I mean, I'd say as well. I mean, obviously Kansas State as well. Darren Sproles is
Mm. In
some.
terms of size, body type, yeah.
Yep, yep. So, and I mean, I can see obviously Deuce Vaughn to go as a sixth round pick. I mean,
Yeah.
the only reason why he went as a sixth round pick, he has the production in college, 4,800 yards total yards from scrimmage over 3 or 4 years. You know, over 1,000 yards a season rushing the ball. You know, very capable back. I'd imagine the Cowboys will try and use him within the screen game.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And you know, the only reason why he wasn't being used or wasn't drafted earlier is because of his size. He's 5'5", and
Mm-hmm.
in this modern NFL, guys are bigger. You need to, you know, everybody's hitting harder, but
Take your lumps and
likewise,
bumps.
you know, if he's got the shiftiness to get away from it, you know, he doesn't make a lot of people hit him. You know, he has that shiftiness that once he's in the open field, he can get away. And he's not afraid of climbing the ladder to go and catch passes as well.
Yeah.
You know, so he will be a multi-faceted weapon for this offense. And you know, he has skills that Tony Pollard doesn't have. So you know, it is a different type of back to Tony Pollard. You know, and we have seen other teams who have had small running backs use that running back to do the screens, to do you know, come out as a slot receiver and everything like that. So I really do like the pick, and not just because of the. I mean, I still can't watch any of the videos with regard to him being drafted, or you know, the whole interview with who was it? I think it was Todd Archer or John Machota had interviewed Chris Vaughn, and the
Yeah.
whole build up to it, that you know, wasn't in the draft room whenever they talked about him, and you know, you saw him talking to his son saying that, you know, well, maybe in the sixth, if you're not drafted in the sixth round by anybody, you know, start looking at where you want to sign for UDFA, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then the next thing Jerry's telling Chris to turn in the card, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen the there's like a hidden camera bit where he's walking up and down the hall, and it's
yeah,
so true what he's saying. And he's talking to Deuce, and he's like, look, this is for all those car journeys, for all those training sessions, you know, this is it. And I think the biggest thing going in his favor, because obviously Deuce One's dad, as you can see, very level-headed, understanding. And what a good thing is you know you're not going to have a type of player, although he doesn't have it anyway. I'm just reiterating the type of guy he's going to be, where you know he's going to be a team player. He's going to be a good locker room guy. He's not going to be one of these who's doing silly things away from, you know, away from the game, outside of, no character concerns. You just know it because you can see it. And I think that's a big thing going in his favor. I had him ranked as my 136 player. So outside the top 100 by a little bit, or maybe a bit, as you could say, but definitely I think so. If we was to revert things around, you know, like as we do sometimes, like we did with the Jalen Tolbert pick and everything else, but okay. But if he was to like say, well, look, Schoonmaker was taken way too early, you could turn around then and say, like, yeah, but we got Deuce Vaughn who was taken way too late. So you've got one where you're like, okay, we kind of went early, and you're like, well, this one we went kind of way too late, which is good. So I think that's the balance you can look at on the whole draft with Deuce Vaughn. The thing I quite like, you mentioned obviously about the screen game, and I think what is best about this, I'm thinking like formations. How would you use him and utilize these abilities? Because what he's good with is he's good once he's got the ball in his hands as a ball carrier and to create plays.
Yep.
Because he's got this unbelievable ability to accelerate quick burst, good agility, understands angles really, really well. You can see he gets the whole approaching angles, and he knows that defenders are going to manipulate those angles to try and cut down, but he just knows that that's good, so he knows where to go. And this is the bit I like the most. I'm thinking, so we got Brandon Cooks, right? You got Michael Gallup. Yep. These are guys who are going to go on some deep 9 routes, different types, corners, posts, whatever. And you could see, I can see now, like say like a 4 out of the shotgun, 4 wide receiver set, and you've got all your wide receivers going on deep routes, but you've got Deuce Vaughn in the backfield. And imagine this. So all the defenders are moving back to try and cover. And then all of a sudden, like you say on screen, which is really going to be an extended handoff where Dak just dumps the ball off to Deuce Vaughn. So he's over here and he's got nothing but green grass ahead of him. Now think of that type of play, and think as well how you can manipulate the defense so much with that. Just with the fact that he's there, the potential, what that's going to do, just for the rest of your wide receivers too, because now they have to keep somebody back. So you've just got this mass potential for just being there. On top of that, imagine him and Tony Pollard in the backfield. How that is going to manipulate it. What are you doing with that? Where's this going?
Yep. And as you say, that sort of play is something that we saw last year, but with Zeke Elliott sort of leeching out of the backfield after, long routes and what have you by the receivers. And unfortunately, Zeke Elliott didn't have the hands that Deuce Vaughn does.
Yeah.
So, the number of times you saw the ball bouncing off his hands or going out of bounds or something like that, those were plays that were left on the table. And I think if you use those with Deuce Vaughn, then I think you're going to get results from that. And that is going to be a weapon, and then that is going to be another thing that defenses have got to face against it as well, and try and scheme up against. So I'm liking. I really do like that pick, and I see Ultra Cowboys there saying that only Darren Sproles. I mean, you go back to the 1980s and Joe Morris for the New York Giants. Joe Morris has most of the New York Giants franchise records for running backs. Receptions, led the league in touchdowns in 1985, I think it was as well. And he was only 5'7". So small guys can do it, especially against a big line like our offensive line is.
Yeah.
They can hide behind that offensive line, and once they're out onto the second level, they use their shiftiness. So I think that's again. This is where he's going to be a strength. And as you say, having Pollard and Deuce Vaughn in the backfield at the same time just gives nightmares.
And, it's not just like having the pair of them in the backfield. Like, both of them, if you wanted to, you could move out and put them into the slot. You just got so many options. Like you say, with Zeke, because you had issues with the hands, you kind of, if it's going to be a pass play, defenders are just sitting there going, okay, well, Zeke's not going to be an option. He's there to block. So you kind of can dismiss him almost. And in the run game, it's going one direction for Zeke. It just so happened to be that he's just such a good running back. He just makes all that work. So, yeah, I definitely agree, though, in terms of versatility of what these as Deuce Vaughn would do, but obviously in terms of what he can do with manipulating defenses with the other pieces that they have there. I think the fact they took Deuce Vaughn with the 6th round pick, knowing they have Brandon Cooks, I feel this is just a massive move where they know they're going to send Brandon Cooks down. He's going to clear defenders out deep, and that's then you can have Deuce Vaughn on these dump offs, these quick passes that almost, like people will be like, oh, why are they checking down to me? No, it's design play that they want to. They just send in these wide receivers down to give Deuce room to be this playmaker that he is, to electrify the field, and he'll just get down there and you'll get these first downs. And not just that, think about like these 2nd and 2 plays, right? 3rd and 2 plays. And, you got a guy, say, like Hunter Lipke, who I feel they're going to keep. Now, he's going to be your short yardage mauler. Imagine a 3rd and 2 situation where Lipke's on the field, but in the backfield with him is Deuce Vaughn. Now, what is the defense trying to cover there? Are they trying to cover a bang, or is this going to be, is the tight end going to come over and wham the nose and Lipke's going up the middle, or is there going to be something different again? Is it going to be a play action on 3rd and 2nd? Because you're going to try and get it out. The creativity you can create with a guy like Deuce Vaughn is just it's unlimited almost.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, obviously, you bring up Lipke as well. Lipke's not just a fullback; he's got that potential as well. That
exactly.
You can put him out in the slot and play him there. You can play him in line tight end, and he has the ability to do it there as well. So, this offense, although we haven't put first round picks into it, I think we have expanded. And I think the whole thing as well, I mean, you talk that we've got Kevontae Turpin. We just didn't use him last year. And is that Kellen Moore? And obviously we're talking about a whole different type of offense coming in, or at least, if you hear it, it's 30% of the offense is changing. Schottenheimer and Mike McCarthy wouldn't have made this pick if it wasn't somebody that they thought they could bring in and bring into this offense. So I think, the Cowboys haven't been a screen team since Tom Landry retired or was fired by Jerry.
Fired or retired, it's up to you.
Yeah, and I think the screen's going to come back big style on this offense.
And we keep saying all of this as well. I'm agreeing with you, but the other side you got to look at with Deuce Vaughn is that you mentioned he's 5'5", 5'6", but 5'5", just shy of 6. For a guy that size, he is not afraid, and he is effective at hitting the hole. That he will hit an A gap and run through it, and you're watching it, waiting for something to go wrong. And he does not care. He's running through there. And I wonder if perhaps it's his size. And, you think you've got 6'4". Hold on, let me go through some of the heights. 6'3", 6'4", inside offensive lineman at Dallas. A guy who's 5'5" is going to sneak behind those offensive linemen and just burst through that hole. And I think that's perhaps what happened in Kansas State, where defensive linemen just cannot see where he's going through. And that he'll just hit that and he's gone. I don't know, linebacker. He is easy to bring down. Like you see, like you couldn't even call them arm tackles, where it's more like a slap to the body and he goes down. But you think for a guy of his size, that's going to happen. But like a lot of people will talk about the open field playmaking, screen passes, receiving game. Yeah, all true. But he will go through an A gap at speed, and he will burst through it, and he's effective at doing it. And when you see him do it, he's this type of one cut guy who will make that one jump cut, and he'll be able to break through on that. Just as I say, the issue when you see him do it, and you think as well at the NFL level where you're going to have linebackers who are a lot more quicker who can gain on him. I just think you can do it, but I wouldn't do it often, more that you're going to fatigue him by doing so.
Yep. And the good thing about Juice as well is he's already getting involved with the team. You've seen this week Micah Parsons. There's a sort of short shuttle that they've done, and Micah Parsons is up against him and one other guy as well. And Deuce and Micah Parsons are very close together on that. So he's obviously integrating with the team already, and that should help him as well. So it's interesting because, I mean, again, you could say that the one thing we're missing at the moment is a big bruiser back. Obviously, we've talked. Luke is that in some respects, can certainly be used as that. But if you also look in previous years, we spent picks like this on guys like Bo Scarborough, who didn't last with us. Went off to the Lions, played one season, and I don't think he's in the league anymore, or I think he's XFL or something like that at the moment. So
he was a lumpy guy.
He was, yeah. I mean, Alabama running backs. That's
exactly
that's what he was.
They're cubes.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think all of this, though, like you're saying, and when you look at the type of guy like Vaughan is, I think it's all playing as well into Mike McCarthy's vision of what's going to be his West Coast offense. So he needs all these shifty, movable type guys, that have a different, a lot of versatility that he can play with on an offense. And I think that's what it's all playing to when you look at it. But yes, so there we go, mate. Got anything more you want to chuck in on those guys, or are you quite happy?
No, I'm quite happy.
You're looking very happy there.
Yeah, I'm nice and relaxed, and looking forward to obviously the start of the rookie camps this weekend. So see how all that goes.
That's it.
And you'll get an eye. Albeit the focus has changed that under the McCarthy regime, that they're not trying to absolutely beast these guys the first week. They're trying to show them how the team works, how they'll practice, and so that they're ready for the following week when the veterans come in as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And of course, this is where we see Dan Quinn getting involved with teaching pass rushing technique to Mazzie Smith or what have you. And by all accounts, some of the guys that they got on the offensive side of things are very much hands-on as well. So Mike Solari, even though he's in his 70s now, is certainly quite a hands-on offensive line coach as well. So this should be a good weekend.
Yeah, and this is what, like you say, and it's when we find out really what these guys are all about. It's hard to judge. Because I've got questions in the mailbag about, players, whatever, and it's like it's almost like you don't want to keep repeating yourself. Where it's like hard to judge right now. Let's wait and see, because that is the way it is at the moment. It's like, it's coming, and this is the first point where you can kind of like take a look at it, take a peek under the hood, as they say, and find out what you've got. So yes, should be very interesting this weekend, and then we'll have some more information on these guys next week then. But there we have it. So hit me with it, Lorne. You're the only one, so you got all the duties.
Right. Okay. So as you know, this schedule's been released tonight, 1 a.m. UK time. Joe, that means it's 2 a.m. for you. Obviously, if you're planning on going to a game this year, obviously hook up with Cowboys Experience for the ultimate meet and greet, stadium tours, game tickets, tailgating. As usual, get to meet guys like Micah Parsons, Zach Martin, Drew Pearson, Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, Jay Novacek. They'll treat you like royalty. Obviously, mention that you come from UK Cowboys, use our code, and you'll get some free stuff as well.
Free stuff, that's right. And go on, hit us with this one, Rob.
And then, of course, check out the Ring of Honor here. Obviously, all the actual Dallas Cowboys podcasts, talking Cowboys, hanging with the boys, the break, etc. Also, obviously, check out the World's Team with Paul Stewart and Meg Murray. Although I think it's Jess Navarez again this week. Pick Six Sports, CFO Sports, Law Nation, Jeff Reinbold Show, KT's Fun Tweets, Fun House, etc. Again, listen to all these guys. Expand your knowledge as best you can and find out what, these guys will tell you what's going on in the background, especially being closer to the ground than we are.
Yeah. Make sure, guys, you go and check out Blogging the Boys. You'll find our work over there. So, lastly, travel package with the UK Cowboys. Go on, Lon.
Yep. So obviously, from all accounts, it's the Commanders. We want to be there. Make sure that they have a hard day, and we come back victorious. Obviously, we've got this package sorted out. We've been working on this for about a year or so. Glad that we can actually release it now. So drop by the Facebook group for more details. Contact Cowboys Experience directly. As I say, most of us are looking at flying out on the Tuesday from the UK and making our own way back as and when the game's finished. So
yes. Yeah, it should be good fun. Hit those bars. Go get some cigars. Drink some beer. And then fall asleep and wake up and find out you missed Thanksgiving.
Next thing you're on the plane, then you're on the wrong connection.
Yeah. You're going the wrong way. You're ending up in Australia somewhere. But yeah, we've all been there, mate. We've all been there. But that is it for this week. Officially, no more draft shows. That is it. We're done. Now we are heading to the future. So next week, schedule release, looking at any roster additions that are happening, rookie minicamp, look back on that, look ahead. Then we'll be doing positional breakdown series, which is always a fun time until we hit training camp in Oxnard. But as always, mate, thank you for joining us. I said mates.
Yep.
To all the fellow Ukis for joining us this week. Stay safe, have a good weekend, and as we do always, Lorne has the final word.
Yep, thanks for joining us, guys. Without it, it's just Mike and I talking for an hour, and we can do that anyway, but it's good to have your interaction as well. So, go Cowboys, speak to you next week. Dallas forever, Philly for never.
Good one.